welcome. My name is Freya and I am a knitter and textile student living in Glasgow with my girlfriend Karina and my two cats Kiska and Floki. Welcome or welcome back. I hope you're doing well. I know it's been a while since my last one. I'm not going to say that every time I film, but it has. I feel like I've got quite a lot to show you. I've been knitting quite a lot. I had a big deadline with college, which meant I was very stressed, and so I knitted. I knitted too much then because I should have been doing college work, and now I am on holiday. I have been for a week and I am for another week, so all I've been doing is knitting basically. So I have my notes, so if I'm looking down, that's what I'm looking at, and I have everything around me, so I guess we'll just jump in. But I'm going to say you can find me on Instagram at Freya Moar Textiles. You can find me on Ravelry at Freya Moar. I'll have it all linked below, as well as the yarns I use, the patterns, stuff like that is all in the description, and I will have chapters. I can't remember what they're called. Yeah, little sections so you can skip ahead to a section that you want to watch. If you don't want to watch a section, you can skip it. Anyway, so I'll start off by saying what I'm wearing, because I don't think I ever do that. I'm wearing the Chestnut Sweater by Petite Knit, which I've worn like at least twice before on my podcast, because I literally wear it every day and it is so comfy and warm, and I just felt like being comfy to film this. So yeah, it's a chestnut sweater and it is knit out of Drops Flora in White Fog, held together with Drops Kid Silk in chalk, and I love it. I just love it. So that is the perfect segue into my first finished object. I actually think it's my only finished object, but yeah, lots of whips. So my first finished object is the Chestnut Sweater by Petite Knit. I knit it again, but this time in a different yarn. So I will show you what it looks like. Again, I can't really see my screen and what you can see, so I apologise if I'm showing this really badly. So I knit the smallest size, and it has a split hem. I would put this on, but it is really warm, and also the neck on this one is really tight. I'm wanting to reblock that, so yeah, I've not really worn it much yet because there's a couple of things I want to change, but we'll get onto that later. So the yarn that I used, the yarn is a fancy yarn for me. It is Peer Gynt, I don't know if I'm saying that right, by Sanya Scan. This is the label. So it is in the colour, I don't know, because that's in a different language. I don't know if that's focusing. I think the colour is 2652. So this is 100% wool. 50 grams is 91 meters, and it everywhere I look says that that is a DK weight, but to me that's an Aran weight, and that I would say that this knits up as an Aran weight. On the label it says 22 stitches for 10 centimeters, which is super tight, and I do not know how you would knit this at such a tight gauge, because even at this gauge for this, jumper, which is 20 stitches per 4 centimeters, or no, 10 centimeters or 4 inches. Is really tight for this yarn, and I would not knit this yarn at such a tight gauge again. So I showed this as an acquisition in my last podcast, but I didn't talk about the price, which is like a big factor as to why I got this yarn. So this yarn is really good quality. I think that ethics behind this brand is quite good, but for each ball it is only £3.40, which is quite affordable to me. So this whole jumper cost £44. I've got the invoice here because it's in the bag. I got this from SKD Yarns. I was originally looking at this yarn on knit.com, but it was a bit more expensive on there, and also they didn't have this colour in stock. So I found this website which had it cheaper, and they had this colour, so I got it from there. So okay, so this yarn was kind of like an add-on yarn for that pattern, because Petite Knit designed that pattern with the yarns fingering weight and mohair held together, and then she knit a version out of Peergynt, and I don't know if she maybe didn't get that tested using that yarn, but I found the yardage that she gave completely wrong. I actually overbought. So for this size she said 600 grams, which would have been 12 balls. I bought 13 balls because I like to err on the side of caution, and I ran out before finishing the length. I did want to crop this anyway, but I was kind of forced to do this certain length, and I do like it, but because I don't know what you can see because it's a split hem, and I don't know if it's because it has so many short rows on the back length is quite a lot longer than the front, which I like in this one because it's super long, so it looks good. But because this is cropped, it kind of looks weird, and it sort of flares out. Like if I'm standing side on, it sort of flares out, and it doesn't create a super flattering shape. So I think I'm gonna rip the rib back and just knit it without a split. So I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but I'll carry on talking about the yarn because I love this yarn. So I heard mixed things about this being itchy or it being soft, or I couldn't really find, like, everyone had a different opinion about it, but I find this yarn, it is rustic, but it is soft rustic. I can wear this against my skin. I don't know if I've got fibre in my mouth. I don't know if I've built up like a tolerance to scratchy yarn. I feel like I have. So yeah, I was surprised that I can wear this next to skin, and it did soften up with washing as well. And going back to the gauge that I knit this at, so 20 stitches per 4 inches on a 4.5mm needle. It hurt my hands and my arms to knit this, but it's not stopped me wanting to knit with this yarn again, but I will knit this at a looser gauge using a pattern that calls for an Aran weight yarn. I wouldn't knit this at this gauge again, but it has created a really bouncy, firm, solid, very warm fabric, which is actually what I wanted from this, because for this one I want this to be like a coat for me. So it is a good thing that it's like impenetrable by the cold. So yeah, I'm just really glad that I finished it. I honestly, this took quite a long time because it was quite oversized. So I was knitting on this like crazy. So let's jump on to needle sizes, because I had a bit of the yarn reacted differently to this combination of yarns, which is super interesting. Like, before knitting these two, I knew that yarn choice made a big difference to the pattern that you're knitting, but I didn't really comprehend how big a difference it could be. So for this one, I used the recommended, well, I went up 0.5mm for all the different sizes, and that worked out fine in terms of the rib feels fine, it's not too tight, not too loose, it works together. But for this one, I would not go, like if I was to knit it again, I would not go down any needle sizes for the ribbing. For some reason, this yarn just, it doesn't block out. Like, when I was blocking it, I was trying to stretch out the rib, because the whole look of this pattern is to not have the rib cinch in at all, and for it to just be straight. And as I was knitting it, it was pulling in, but I was like, I can block that out easily. But that wasn't really the case. It didn't really want to block out anything really. So if you're knitting this yarn at this gauge, don't expect to be able to block out certain things. It was very bounce back and it has quite a big memory. Like the fabric has a memory, which is super interesting. Really interesting knitting with this yarn. So yeah, let me look at my notes, because I have so much to talk about with this. Yeah, so I ran out of yarn, but it's okay. I'm actually all right with the length. But changing the rib over to a normal rib and not a split hem. No, that's about it. That's about it. I'm sure I've missed out so much, because as I was knitting this, I was like, oh, I need to talk about this. I need to talk about this. But I actually finished this a while ago, so it's not really fresh in my memory. But yeah, so overall, 100% would recommend this pattern, bearing in mind that it's got a lot of ease, as does pretty much all petite knit patterns. I would recommend the yarn. Super fun to work with, smells amazing. So sheepy, it just like makes the whole room smell of sheep, which I like. Yeah, I would recommend this yarn, not at the tight gauge though. So yeah, I think that's everything. So we shall move on. So let us move on. Well, I'll just briefly mention that if you watched my other podcasts, I've been knitting like odd scrappy socks for an order that somebody put in of 3 pairs, and I finally finished them, and they are with the recipient, and I think she really likes them. But that's always nice. Yeah, always nice to know that people actually like it and appreciate it. But yeah, so finally done with those socks. They took a lot longer than I was expecting. Don't know, maybe I didn't have that sock mojo at that time, so maybe it took a bit longer because of that. But anyway, super happy that they're done. And as I was knitting them, I was like, I'm not knitting socks for ages. I can't do this anymore. But maybe like a week after finishing those 3 pairs, I cast on a pair for myself. So my girlfriend sometimes she buys me a skein of special yarn, and Hedgehog Fibres had just put out new colours, and she decided to buy me 2 skeins. I have a mess of things sat next to me, so let me just dig down and find this. So yes, as I was saying, she got me Hedgehog Fibres skein of, this is it, rolled into a ball, and this is the slightly, I don't know why that's so scratched, anyway, Hedgehog Fibres. It is a sock yarn, which is, I don't know if you could read that, 90% merino, 10% nylon, superwash, 400 meters per 100 grams in Renaissance. And this yarn is so soft. It feels so luxurious, and also the way that they dyed it means the way that it knits up in socks is like amazing. I love the way this knits up. So I have finished 1 sock and I have done a little bit of the second one. So I will show you. So this is what it looks like knit up. Now I have knit 2 pairs of socks from the same skein of yarn, I will say, out of hand-dyed yarn. And when I knit that, there was like massive pooling around this section because obviously you increase so many stitches, and therefore the way that it's dyed, it knits up differently on different circumferences. And with the other one, it pooled quite a lot here. But for this one, it's pooled a little bit, but hardly, which is crazy. Like, I don't know if it's just a fluke or they really do know what they're doing when it comes to dyeing yarn. But it's so fun to knit up. And this is a different kind of sock knitting for me. I knit this toe up. If you have watched my podcast before, I did not, or thought I did not, like toe up socks at all. I thought, why would you do that? And it really, I was just like, why would you do that? Because for me, a heel flap and gusset construction is what fits my foot the best, because I have such a height instep, which is annoying because it's just annoying. And all of the toe up socks that I've seen either had like an afterthought heel, or I don't really know the names of the different heels, but it's just like a wedgy bit with no like increases on the actual foot. It's just the heel. But I've been on the lookout for a toe up pattern with a heel flap and gusset, and I have already I've knit one pair of socks using this construction / this pattern that I modified because I knit it on sport weight yarn, and after wearing that sock, actually the way that fits I actually prefer to my cuff down socks, and that is because it has slightly more short rows when you're turning the heel, so it fits my heel even better. There's even more fabric there, which is perfect for me. And now that I've knit this pattern, I cannot remember who wrote it or what it's called, but I will link it below, and I would highly recommend knitting this pattern. The only thing is that she tells you to knit plain before starting the increases for far too long a length. Like, she says to knit it from 3 to 2 inches shorter than what you want the final length to be. I ended up knitting mine like over 4 inches shorter than the final length. Did I make sense? Basically, you want to knit straight for a lot less length than what she says. Apart from that, this is a super good pattern. Like, I'm really, really tempted to now try magic glue, which I can't believe I'm saying. But for the cast on for these, I did change the cast on from what the pattern says actually. I can't remember words or names, but she suggests Judy's Magic cast on, but I used, can't remember what it's called, but Andrea Mowry has a tutorial video. I'll link it below, and I would only do this cast on. I wouldn't do the one in the pattern, because this one doesn't create like a seam or a ridge on the inside, which would just really annoy me. Like, the feel of that would really annoy me. So that is one thing that I changed. I feel like I'm jumping about. I keep starting a sentence and then not finishing it, which is probably super annoying for people watching. But yeah, so now that I have knit this sock, I've completely got my head around the construction, and now I know how to recreate my cuff down socks as toe up socks, because you are literally just doing it backwards, which really like blew my mind, like trying to think about how that was done, because I was gonna try and knit a toe up sock without a pattern, because I couldn't find one that was a heel flap and gusset. But now that I know how it's constructed, it completely makes sense, and I can just convert all of my numbers into a toe up sock and it'll fit the same, but slightly better because there's more short rows in the heel turn. Yes. I'm knitting this on a 2.25 needle. Normally I knit socks on a 2.5, but because this is 90% merino and only 10% nylon, I wanted a tighter gauge. And also, if you knit on a tighter gauge, the socks last longer, and this is such a special yarn and pair of socks that I want it to last as long as possible. I know that they will last a long time because I will only wear these inside. This is not an outside sock. So yeah, is that all? I think so. I feel like I always talk a lot about socks. I could honestly probably film like 5 whole videos just about socks. So yeah, anyway, that is my second slash first whip. Yeah. So moving on. I feel like I'm going very fast. So let me refer to my notes. Okay, so this one is a tea. It is a self-drafted pen, but I took some numbers from the ranunculus and some numbers from my heavily modified ranunculus, changed it a lot and came up with this, but I'm gonna frog it. So I'll show it to you first. So this is it. I'll show you, then I'll talk about the yarn. A whole tangle of yarn. I have stole the long cord off of this for my other whip, but it's not wanting to lie flat. It really looks like nothing, but I don't know if you can see, but basically the increased rows are eyelets, so it created rows of eyelets going down. However, I thought these eyelets were going to be a lot more pronounced, is that the word? A lot more obvious than they are. I don't know if that's because of the gauge that I am knitting this at. I am knitting this at a 6mm gauge, and the yarn that I'm using is 2 lace weights held together. So this one is this Isaga alpaca one, which is 100% alpaca, and 50 grams is 400 meters. So it's super thin, but super soft, really soft. And then I am holding that together with Drops Kid Silk in chalk, which is actually leftovers from this, because I had like 2 balls left over, and I already had this yarn in stash, and I've been wanting to knit a lightweight tee for a long time because I wear my other one, which is a modified ranunculus knit out of mohair held together with a lace, all the time. And it's been the weather to wear something like that. And I've had this design in my head for a long time. However, it wasn't turning out the way I wanted it to, so I lost motivation for knitting on it, and then I was just disheartened, and I put it to the side, and I started the socks, and I started my other whip. So I'm really sad that it's not turning out how I wanted it to. I'm going to rip it back, and then I think I'm going to try and knit it on a tighter gauge with the hope that that will make the holes more pronounced, because the actual stitches are really gappy, so perhaps that's making the eyelets not stand out as much. So yeah, really soft fabric though, really nice fabric, but I think it could do with being knit on a tighter gauge. So maybe I'll get round to that after I finished my next whip. So yeah, that is that really, yeah, that's everything for that one. A super fast whip. I guess I can't really comment on how the pattern's knitting up or anything like that because I'm making it up basically. So moving on to a very, very special, very exciting whip. So if you watched my last podcast, you would have seen that I got a very, very, very special package from a lovely viewer of some absolutely gorgeous mohair yarn. And I've been thinking and thinking about the perfect pattern for this. I had a couple in mind. I was gonna knit a pattern that was 100% mohair, just made out of this yarn. But I couldn't settle on one that really, really excited me. So I was like, right, don't jump into that. Really look and think about what pattern you want to make. And then one day I was just like, oh, I could knit that pattern because I'd seen somebody else knit it. And I liked it then. And I was like, well, that's a fingering held together with a mohair. Let's knit that. So let me run through the yarns first because there's a bit of a journey with the yarns. So this is the very special mohair, which is Lamana Premier, which is 60% mohair and 40% silk, so it is super luxurious. It's in the colour 37 and the yardage is 300 meters per 25 grams. All the other mohair that I have used has been 210 meters per 25 grams. So this is super thin, which I was like, that was another reason why I was like, maybe I shouldn't knit just a full mohair garment out of this, because even holding it together, I would have had to hold 3 strands together to get the weight of holding 2 strands of normal mohair lace yarn together, if that makes sense. This is so soft. I kind of want to just keep one ball just to hold. So yeah. And the yarn, so I was looking for ages for the perfect yarn to hold together with it. I found pretty much the perfect shade in West Yorkshire Spinners exquisite lace in the Portobello colourway. I've memorised it because it was perfect, the perfect colour, but it was just too expensive, and it broke my heart because it would have been perfect. So I went on the hunt again, and I thought I really wanted to get I didn't want to get I don't want to say cheap, but a not so special yarn. I wanted to get, you know, preferably an ethical yarn, super soft, that would work well with that yarn and enhance it, and not, because that yarn's so soft, I just wanted a really soft yarn to go with it because I didn't want to ruin it, if that makes sense. So I went onto the website Colomat. I've spoken about them before, but it is a company that sort of saves end of line yarns from some mills or some fashion companies that have stopped making a garment and it has all this dead stock basically. So they get all of that yarn and they sell it on, and they also ply some of those yarns together, because some of them are like cobweb weight yarns, so they ply some together. They also can chain some yarns together, and I think they also like recycle fibres in terms of just shredding them up and just remaking yarn. I think I could be making that up, but anyway, they're a super interesting brand to me, and you can get some really luxurious yarns at a more affordable price, and also, you know, you're saving it from the landfills, is how I like to think about it. And also it's on cones, which is super nice to knit from. So yeah, long-winded way of saying that I found a yarn. Now, it's always a gamble buying yarn online in terms of what the colour's gonna look like in person, because I really wanted to get the perfect match for this colour, because it's a really stunning colour, and I really like this colour, and I didn't want to change it too much. So anyway, I took the gamble. I found this yarn. It is a 10% cashmere and 90% merino. So I was like, ooh, cashmere. So I got 2 cones. I have taken it off the cones. So yeah, it is fine fingering weight cashmere merino. It's 150 gram cones, and for that 150 grams is 710 meters. So obviously I got them in cones. I got them and I smelt it. Wait, something has popped up on my phone. Okay. Yeah, and I smelt it and I was like, what is that smell? It didn't smell like sheep. And I thought, that must be what spinning oil smells like. And I was knitting up a swatch and I was like, this is not an enjoyable experience because of the smell. I've never gotten a yarn before and had the thought of, I'm gonna have to, pass this yarn on and not work with this yarn because of the smell. And I was like, right, let's wash it. So I wound it off, I washed it, it smelled awful. I use Woolite. I have a leave-in wool wash, but the scent isn't really strong. So I used Woolite because the scent is really strong. I washed it, it smelled awful when I was washing it. I used quite a high temperature washing it because I thought that'll help, get rid of the spinning oil. It'll help it, wash out. I washed it, I hung it out to dry, and it dried. I smelt it and it still smelled really bad. And I was like, I was so close to winding it up, but I was like, I have it in the skeins, let's just wash it again. Which was painful because I really wanted to knit this straight away. So I washed it again in the Woolite, a hot wash, hand wash, hung it out to dry, and it still smells a little bit, and I'm kind of worried that the final garment is still gonna smell slightly of it. But it's doable now. So this is the yarn. Yeah, it definitely smells more like woolite and sheep now. Now that I'm smelling it, it's actually okay. So this is the yarn. This is the mohair. I'm trying to see. Yeah, it is obviously a more beigey brown colour. But honestly, it was really hard to find a match for this. Like I said, the only true match that I found was that exquisite lace. And I am going to have mohair left over. So I think I'm going to buy a skein or two of that. And knit something out of that. Like I could get like a tee out of it. You know, so I think I'm just gonna have to do that. But anyway, so this is a yarn combination. What I will say about this yarn, which is kind of weird, like I can't really wrap my head around the spin on this, because it's a 4-ply, but like let me get, but it's not like bouncy or stretchy. I thought that washing it might help that, but it is a little bit now. It has gotten better. I don't know if you can see that. But like, yeah, it's not like super bouncy, and also it does kind of feel like you can really feel the plies. Yeah, I don't really know how to describe it, but it kind of feels like textural and kind of like string, which is really weird. But yeah, it's soft. Obviously it's cashmere and merino, so it's soft. I also another reason why this yarn really stood out to me is because so for Colour Mart, they link their Ravelry pages for their yarn. So I went over and looked at the project pages of people using this, and I saw someone put an image up of the inside of one of their cones, because they put, I don't know if you can see that, they put a label on, and on hers it had the original label from the manufacturer, and it turned out that that her yarn was made for a Scottish, like how do I describe it? Like a Scottish knitwear brand that does like really luxurious cashmere stuff, and it's really high end and expensive and luxurious, and I saw that and I was like, oh, that's special. So I don't know if, I mean, I assume that the whole line is from that company. They don't tell you what company that they get it from, so so you don't know. But in my head, I like to think that this is from a Scottish knitwear company, which is obviously amazing because I live in Scotland. So it's super, yeah, it's fun. So anyway, all of that to say, I started making the sweater number 15 by, is it My Favourite Things Knitwear that does the whole sweater number whatever thing? I don't know. I'll have it linked below. So let me show you my swatch. This is my swatch. So I'll show you later some more swatches, and I found out that I have a slightly tighter gauge than most pattern designers, which kind of surprised me. I really thought that I was pretty dead on normal, like not normal, like dead on what the pattern calls for. But for every pattern recently, I've gone up 0.5 millimeters on all of the needle sizes, which is interesting to me. It's just interesting. So this pattern calls for, I should have written this down, it calls for a 4.5 millimeter with a gauge of 23 stitches by 29 rows per 4 inches. And I ended up, so this is on the top here it is a 5 millimeter, on the bottom here it is a 5.5 millimeter. I liked the gauge of both, and obviously the bottom one has a bit more drape and is a bit more flowy, but the top one is the one that I hit gauge on. And I was contemplating just knitting it at the looser gauge, but I was like, no, let's just stick to the pattern. Let's not overthink this. So I stuck to the pattern. I got gauge pretty much dead on, which is always amazing. So yeah, so that's my gauge swatch, and onto the whip finally. So this is it. It's kind of weird at the moment because I've literally just picked up the neckline, so it's kind of all bunched up, but you can kind of, no, it's fine. So this is it. I've actually knit quite a lot of this. It's full cables, which is essentially just rib with a twist. So obviously it's taken a bit longer than just stocking it. But it is a really, really interesting construction. Really interesting. One thing that I was thinking when I was reading this pattern, and obviously I love looking at other people's like project notes on Ravelry. I just find it super helpful, and sometimes you find a running theme of all of the notes, and people are like, knit the sleeve 1 cable longer, knit the body 1 cable longer, that kind of a thing. I've forgotten where I was going with this. Yeah, I've completely forgotten my train of thought. Oh no, I feel like that was quite an important thing. Yeah, I can't remember. Anyway, so it's a really interesting construction, but the pattern has the first size, like the final garment size, is 43 inches, which to me is quite a large first size to have. Is it just me that thinks that? Because I didn't really want, so my bust, I think it fluctuates between like 33.5 inches to like maybe 34.5 inches, something like that. I swear it changes every time I measure, so something like that. So I didn't want to go any larger than why do I keep like losing my train of thought? I didn't want to go any larger than the first size, so I started knitting the first size. However, I'm not going to give away the pattern, but I have changed it. I don't really know how much to say about how I changed it, but basically, instead of doing increases at the bottom of the arm, I did that increase on the shoulder so that the shoulder is wider, and therefore, how do I describe this? I like a shoulder and armhole, as you can see on this, that is quite dropped and wide here so that it doesn't bunch up under my armpit, and there's a lot of room. If I was to knit the first size, the armhole would not have been, it would have been like the length of my shoulder pretty much, and I wanted it to be longer here. So instead of doing the increase here, I did the increase here, and yeah, so I ended up with the right amount of stitches in the end. So yeah, that's something that I changed. I've literally only just joined in the round, but I ran out of my ball of yarn, so I just went straight onto the neckline. I like to do the neckline before finishing any of the body, the sleeves, because it changes the way the garment sits. Like, if you don't pick up the neckline can be quite stretched out, but when you pick it up, it can cinch it in and hold it up, and it becomes a stable edge basically. So that's what I'm doing. I am picking up stitches a couple of stitches less than the smallest neckline size, because a couple of people said that that's what they did. This is also a folded neck. I'm not doing that. I don't really like the look of that. And I know that's quite in at the moment, but I think it's too bulky. People also say, you also hear a lot of people say that they put elastic in it. I'm not really a fan of putting elastic in knitwear. I just feel when I wear my knits, I want it to feel natural, and elastic over time can become stretched out. Elastic sort of, you know, it degrades in that way, like it becomes stretched out, it doesn't stretch anymore, and I feel like that would just be such a pain trying to cut it out and add another like bit of elastic in it. Like, it's just too much of a faff. Like, I would prefer to just let the yarn do the work and not put in elastic. So I'm not going to fold it. I'm just going to knit obviously half the length that it tells you to, and then do a Italian bind off. And I think we're going to do that quite tightly so that it doesn't stretch out. I feel like this is going to be quite a heavy jumper. And I've also now remembered what I was going to say earlier. So one thing that sort of, you know, a thought that I had whilst reading this pattern is that a lot of people in their notes said this is a really easy pattern to read, like super simple, and when I was reading it, I was like, what? I had to reread it loads of times, and I had to watch her videos to sort of understand what the instructions were saying. And then it was like, and it sort of hit me that I am dyslexic, and for some reason that's never crossed my mind as to how that affects me reading patterns. Like for me, my dyslexia means that I need to reread things a lot of times before I sort of understand what it's trying to say. So as I was reading it, I was like, what were these people saying? Like, this is super simple to understand. And I was like, oh wait, I'm dyslexic. Everything's a little bit harder for me to understand. But once I read it and I understand it, I'm like, of course that's what it means. Like, that is super simple. So yeah, it is a simple pattern. It's not, I wouldn't recommend it as like your first jumper. But if you've knit like 1 or 2 or 3, go for it. But if you're dyslexic, read it like 5 or 10 times and watch the videos. So yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So yes, I've changed the numbers a little bit. I have, yeah, I think when I pick up the sleeves don't have any decreases at all. They're just knit straight. And to me that's quite a wide, I don't know if it's doing if the camera's doing it justice as to how big that is. But I feel like if I put my hand in there, obviously this is going to stretch out a lot. Like, look how far down that goes. I love like a big open sleeve, but that just seems a bit much. So I think I'm going to do a couple of decreases down the arm, and I think how I'm going to do that is the inside cable here, I'm going to do my decreases along there, and that will just decrease it out. Like, I'll still be twisting, like say I've decreased and on that next twist row there's only 4 stitches instead of 6 stitches for that column. I'll still switch those and do that twist, and then I'll just keep decreasing, and hopefully that shouldn't look too weird. I still want a straight sleeve, but even when you do a couple of decreases, it looks like a straight sleeve. Like, if you don't do any decreases, it kind of ends up looking like a bell sleeve, like a flared out sleeve, which is weird. Like, I don't really understand how that works. I guess it's to do with the ratio of, like, obviously your bicep is thicker than your wrist, so maybe it tricks your mind into thinking that it's like a flared out sleeve. I don't know. But yeah, I'm going to do a couple of decreases along the sleeve just to make it a straight sleeve instead of sort of flaring out and being too big. And also I'm hoping that I've got enough yarn to finish this. On some of the patterns, Ravelry patterns, I saw some people use a little bit more yardage, some people used quite a lot less, and I'm also definitely thinking I'm gonna have to add at least 1 more cable repeat on the arms. I like a long arm, and on hers it is kind of like comes to here, where I like it to come to here. And I also probably am gonna play around with the length, because I don't want it to be too cropped, because it's going to be a warm jumper, and having a warm jumper that's cropped is kind of counterintuitive to me. But I don't want it to be too long, because I don't really like wearing really long jumpers, even though I'm wearing like a really long jumper. But yeah, I don't typically like them. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say on that, I think. Honestly, I feel like I've spoken so long about that. I definitely recommend checking out Colour Mart though, if you're interested in like their company, like, what's the word? like what their company is all about, like saving yarn from landfill and stuff. And you sign up, when you create your account, it says, how did you find out about them? And you can say you found them on YouTube, and you can also put what YouTuber suggested it to you. So if you do that, it would be nice if you put my name down, and maybe they would I don't know. I just really like their brand, and I want them to know who I am because I just love them, and I think it's a really interesting model for a company, and I feel like there needs to be so many more companies like them. Like I love buying like buying things like that instead of like brand new, like, you know, in the packaging. Like, I think it's so interesting buying stuff from the industry and seeing what that's all about. Anyway, yeah. So let me see. So that is my final whip that I'm going to talk about. I'm looking at my notes. And now I'm going to talk about some swatches that I've done. So in between, like when I was waiting for that yarn to dry, and I wanted a break from the socks, I knit up first of all that swatch for that sweater number 15, and also 2 more swatches, because I've had I didn't pick up my other one. That's super annoying. I'll just have to talk you through it. So I have had in my stash, again actually, cones of silk from Colour Mat. And I bought it especially for knitting the Jessie Made Very V-neck raglan jumper. I've had that jumper pattern in my stash, and I tried to knit it once already, but I used not the right yarn, which is 100% my fault, and I don't know why I did it. But then I saw she had knitting. Wait, I'm gonna turn that light up. I've seen that she had knitted a version that was just 100% silk in a fingering weight yarn. The pattern calls for a DK weight yarn, so it was a more looser, flowy area fabric, and it just looked, I love things like that, especially for like summer. Here it is, like, even though it can be warm, there's always going to be a point in the day where you want to put like a jumper on or something. So I thought that would be perfect. I've had that yarn in my stash since last year. I sort of missed the time to do it last summer, and I've honestly, in the back of my head, been wanting to knit this for so long. So because I'm on holiday, I'm like, let's knit this. I have so much time to knit. So I did 2 swatches for this. First of all, I swatched with just the silk yarn. I'm actually going to go and get it. It is in a different colour. I got 3 cones, 2 in white and 1 in another colour, for something else that I was doing. So this is the yarn. Oh, I'm wobbling. This is the yarn. It is a fingering weight Noil silk, Noil. Noil. It's in the colourway Fawn. It's 150 grams, which is 530 meters, and that is like a heavy 4-ply. Is that right? Maybe it's just a 4-ply. Anyway, yeah, so this is the yarn. It's a really interesting yarn because it's a silk, but it's not necessarily silky. It's like matte and like bumpy and textural, which I love. I think it's super interesting. I love anything textural, hence the textile student. Yeah. So anyway, I knit a swatch. Let me see. So I think the pattern calls for maybe maybe a 4.5, I think it calls for. So I think I knit this one stranded on a 4.4, 4.5 or a 5, something like that. Anyway, it was a loose gauge, but the gauge, like, it was like a diamond. Like, the stitches were going like this, and it was really noticeable, and I was like, that'll block out maybe. So I blocked it and it did not block out, and I was like, maybe that's the twist in this. I mean, I was knitting it back and forth. I would kind of understand it if I was knitting it in the round, because then you are knitting a spiral, so the stitches are kind of going like that. So then I was like, well, maybe if I stabilize it with a mohair, I obviously wouldn't get the kind of look that I was going for, but maybe it would sort of make it more stable and not make it go on a slant. So anyway, so this is the swatch. I don't know if you can see this, but it is still going on a slant. I don't know what you can see, but it's noticeable in person. Now, can anyone tell me what I should do? Like, I have a spinning wheel. Is it worth putting it through my spinning wheel and taking some of the twist out of it? Like, I really want to knit this design in this yarn, but I don't want to go through knitting it all and then for it to be weird and lopsided. So does anyone have any like words of wisdom on that? Because I really want to know. Honestly, please, somebody just let me know what I should do. Do you think it'll be okay if I just knit it? And it might look okay in the finished garment? Should I put it through my spinning machine? Like, what should I do? I really want to knit this in this yarn. So anyway, so that's what I did. I just really want to knit it. So yeah, so that's my swatches. Oh, I have next on my notes yarn acquisitions, but it's over there. I forgot to bring it here, so I will quickly run and go and get it. Now this is, I nearly fell over there. This is from Woolly Knit. I'm sure if you are a podcaster watcher, you'll be probably sick of seeing this, but obviously Rebecca, is that her name? I am so bad at names. From the Creya Bear podcast, did a collab with them and did a knit along, and they had a discount, but I never bought yarn, because I try not to just like go with the hype and not buy yarn with something in mind. I mean, yeah, I like to buy yarn with something in mind, and I try not to do, why can't I put this sentence together? Like, I try not to buy yarn for the sake of buying yarn. But I've been wanting to buy from these guys for a long time, way before her collab and all of that. I've had stuff in my basket for them for ages, and for your first purchase you get 10% off, and I've still not bought for them, and and she had said that they're going to put their prices up soon, and I was like, right, I'm going to jump and get some yarn, and but I was only going to do that if I had things in mind of what to knit. So let me show you the yarn. It is in a very crinkly bag, so bear with. I apologise. So, okay, so I got one cone and one hank. I'll show you the cone first. This is the cone. It is the British breeds, yeah, British wool, 4-ply. It says 125 grams is 588 meters. This is a 500 gram cone. I'm trying to remember how many yards that is. It's a light fingering, so I can't remember. No, I can't remember. It's a lot though, and if I held this together, if I held this double, I could get one jumper. If I held it with mohair, I could get 2. So yes, I got this, and this actually arrived as I was knitting on my chestnut sweater. And let me just show you the colours. It's pretty much identical. I was obviously going through a brown phase. I honestly was umming and ahhing about what colour to get, and in the end I decided on this one. I will be holding this together with a mohair, which will change the colour, but I mean, yeah, it is pretty much the same. So anyway, so this is the British wool cone, and I was expecting it to be really itchy, and it's definitely not like merino, but it's soft. Like, I could wear this next to skin, and actually, yeah, it's pretty much the same softness as that Peer Gynt. It might even be softer if I wash it, so that's really exciting. I've got a couple of patterns in mind. I mean, pretty much like every pattern that I want to make is like a fingering held together with mohair, or like every pattern could be modified to use the yarn mohair held together with fingering. So I will definitely be using this after summer probably, because I'm trying not to knit like woolly jumpers in summer, because I finished that Peer Gynt chestnut sweater, and it has been kind of too warm to wear it, which is super annoying because I really want to wear it. So that's really sad. That's kind of put me off knitting like any more super woolly stuff at the moment. Anyway, so that's that. The second thing that I got was a 200 gram hank. Again, British wool. This is 200 grams, and this is 940 meters. So this will get me a garment as well. And actually, I have something in mind for this, and I am going to cast this on after I finish that, which I am, honestly, I'm so excited to knit with this, because again, this though it is rustic, it's soft. And I think especially if I put a mohair together with it, it's going to be soft. So that's really exciting. It was kind of a gamble to me to get it, because I was like, ugh, British wool, it doesn't, you know, scream this is going to be soft. But I was like, if I can handle that yarn, I'm going to go for it and see if I can handle this yarn. And I definitely will be able to. It's soft to me. I don't know if I've built up a tolerance, but it's soft to me. So yeah, that is my acquisitions, and kind of, oh yeah, what I'm gonna make with this. Did I say? I don't know. I'm wanting to knit the cottage cardigan by Jacqueline. I don't know how to say her second name. She literally released it yesterday or the day before, and she did like a pay what you can thing, and I did that because you know, obviously on a budget, and her patterns can be quite pricey, like full price, and I've been wanting to knit one of her patterns for the longest time, and I thought, what a perfect, like, it all just fell into place. I've been wanting to knit a cardigan for ages. I had this yarn, and also I could buy the mohair to go with it. She put out the pattern. It's just perfect. Everything lined up, and I'm really excited to cast this on. I'm honestly itching. I still need to buy the mohair. I'm trying to hold off buying it until I'm like a couple of days before finishing my sweater number 15, because I just really like to buy the yarn and like cast it on the same day. Is that just me? Like, I really like it to be like exciting and fresh and new, and just I don't want it to be sat around. I just want that excitement to just. Am I the only one? I don't know. Yeah, that kind of sounds weird now that I'm saying it out loud, but anyway, that is everything for today. Oh no, it's not. Well, it's everything hand knitted today. But I'm on holiday obviously from college, and I have a knitting machine that my auntie very kindly handed down to me, which I've been wanting to master for the longest time, and I keep seeing like really beautiful swatches on Instagram from loads of people. I'm like, how do you do those techniques? Like, I couldn't find any like videos on YouTube about how to knit these designs. Like, how are they making them? I could only see like how to cast on, cast off, increase, yeah, stuff like that. And I was like, they obviously know more. Like, how are they learning this stuff? Because I don't want to go to uni after this college course, and I've already been, it almost killed me. I'm not going back there, so I'm wanting to jump straight into the industry. So I'm wanting to learn everything. I just want to soak everything up as much as possible from this college course and stuff like that. But unfortunately last term I didn't really learn anything on the knitting machine. And then one day I was on Instagram and I came across this account, and she has been putting out YouTube video tutorials for the past couple of months on how to knit like all of these technical samples that I've been wanting to know how to knit for the longest time. Like, honestly, such a gem of a YouTube like account. And honestly, if anybody has a knitting machine and is wanting to know how to knit these seemingly impossible things, go and check her out. I will link her below. I cannot remember the name of it because I'm awful with names. But she does like tuck stitch, eyelets, transfers, cables, elongated stitches, lace, and how to combine them all. And honestly, it just blows my mind. I followed maybe 2 of her things, and then I was like, oh, okay, I understand how that's constructed. And then I played around with making my own patterns, and then I followed a couple more of her videos, and I'm itching to make up my own combinations. I'm looking at my knitting machine in front of me now. Honestly, my whole table is full of cones of yarns. Like, if you could see my room right now, it's just yarn and knitting machine stuff. And honestly, I just tidied this like a week ago, and it's an explosion in here. I'm honestly so excited and honestly so buzzed that I found this channel, and I feel like a sense of relief that I don't need to go to uni to learn these things. Like, I'm such a believer in teaching yourself and not needing a formal education to know these things. Like, I have not been formally taught how to knit on a knitting machine. Like, my auntie showed me once, I read the manual, I watched a couple of YouTube videos, and I taught myself. I've taught myself all of these new techniques, and it's super simple. It just looks hard. I've taught myself all of my hand knitting skills. Like, everything is self-taught, which is amazing. Anyway, massive tangent. I've got loads of swatches behind me that I'm going to show. If you're not interested in knitting machine stuff, then I will see you in my next podcast. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you're doing well, and hopefully I'll see you next time. So thank you. But anyway, on to my swatches. I mean, how fun. I don't know if this is gonna focus on these, but like, how fun. Like, can you see the texture of this? Honestly, I see stuff like this online, like on Instagram, and I'm like, how can you do that? Like it's just crazy. Honestly, insane. Like, so much fun. And now I completely understand the construction. Like, as soon as I get my head around the construction, I'm away. Like, I'm just like, right, I get it. And also, a lot of pretty much all knitting machine stuff is just maths, and I kind of like that. Like, I like the numbers side of it, and I like learning it. I think that's just all this is that I just love learning. I just love learning, and as soon as like I wrap my head around something, it is so satisfying. And this is just so satisfying to finally know how people have been doing this. Like, I've been following a lot of people who offer like online classes, and I've always been hesitant because, you know, it's expensive, and also my machine, I didn't really get the grips of how to care for it, if that makes sense. Like it kept jamming and all of that, and then for some reason recently I've sort of been able to clean it properly, and all of that, and oil it up properly and care for it properly, so it's knitting really, really nicely. I mean, if I'd have tried to knit a sample like this, it would have just been all holes. It wouldn't have knit properly. I mean, getting this fluffy yarn through the machine, I don't know how that, I honestly don't know how that worked. But anyway, it's just, like, I don't know where these samples are going, but I don't care because I'm just having so much fun. And I mean, this one's my favourite. I don't know how much you can see of this. It's just so fun. Honestly, I could honestly do these all day. I have been doing this all day. I mean, honestly, you see these and you're like, how do people do that? Like, how are people wrapping their heads around that? But now that I've done it, like, I'm already able to make up my own combinations and figure out my own numbers, and it literally only took a day. It's just amazing. I love it. I'm having so much fun, and I really hope my next college project I can integrate this, because honestly I could do this all day. So yeah, that is everything now. So thank you so much for watching. Super excited to keep on knitting solidly all day every day for the next week, and then probably continue, even though I probably should be then doing college work. I've really got my knitting mojo back, and I'm just got so many things that I want to knit that I'm just buzzed. So anyway, yeah, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you again in my next podcast. I hope you're doing well and looking after yourself, and if not, I hope you are being kind to yourself and being patient, and with the knowledge that it will all be resolved and it will all get better in time. So thank you so much, and I will see you next time.